Hello and welcome back to We Met Behind the Castle. I'm your host, Logan Stump, and today is July 18th, 2024. This is the third episode of We Met Behind the Castle podcast. So if you are checking out this podcast, thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm putting this up on YouTube so you can actually check out the visual. If you if you want to look at my face, then you can do that as well and not just hear a voice. I know some people prefer the YouTube episodes. I know that some people prefer the podcast and listening in the car or whatever you're doing as far as if you're working or whatever it might be. So welcome into again another episode. We are going to talk today about the 10 things we missed most at Walt Disney World. So buckle up, it's going to be pretty exciting, it's going to be pretty nostalgic. I know some people have been talking about some of these things recently because I actually saw it on X. So it got me thinking, what would be a fun episode? Because we didn't really have much news break. And the only news that we really did have break was Halloween Horror Nights. And I covered that in our last video. So I thought, what can we talk about today that would be a fun, top 10 kind of thing? And I thought that this would be a good start. And I want to keep doing episodes like this. So usually we'll attach some news and some breaking news in front of this, but really all we had was Halloween Horror Nights updates and then Country Bear Jamboree. But I'm going to do a video on that on YouTube. So I felt like covering it in today's podcast episode just didn't make sense. So here we are. We're going to create a topic where we can discuss, and hopefully you all have some memories of these places, or maybe they're not great memories, maybe they're good memories, maybe they're bad memories. Again, this is just my personal opinion of things that I guess I miss the most, things that I wish would come back or wish stuck around. Obviously, some of the things that replace these things are better, and I enjoy them. But again, just kind of going back into the archives of things that have disappeared since I really started to get into just Disney World itself. I did travel to Disney World when I was a kid. It was not much. We didn't come as much just because we weren't really a Disney family. But now, obviously, I've turned into kind of this Disney fanatic where I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. But just kind of start with some of my background and kind of leading up to, I guess, some of these things that I really miss at Walt Disney World. So I think it was like 2000 and I want to say 2005, 2006. We came down as a family. We stayed at the Polynesian. My dad had to work at one of the Orlando convention centers. So my mom, brother, and I went to the Disney parks. I had only visited two parks leading up into my first college program in 2013. And those two parks were Disney's Hollywood Studios and Magic Kingdom. And then in 2011, I came to Flagler College, and the orientation actually took place at Magic Kingdom. So I guess that would have been my second time at the Kingdom. I had spent one day at Disney's Hollywood Studios, and we'll talk a little bit about that because a lot of these attractions are attractions that were in Disney's Hollywood Studios, and they are things that I miss seeing at studios because I was just talking about this with my friends and two of the guys that had done the Disney College program with me, and Matt. And we were talking a little bit about just debunked and defunct and all sorts of different things go with Disney. But some of these attractions and things that went away, and we were reflecting on a time that once was, because in 2013 I came back for the Disney College program, and that's where I met Matt and Andrew. They worked Disney's Hollywood Studios. They actually worked in the back lot. We'll talk a lot about that area and the streets of America. And but yeah, we were just kind of reflecting on a good time. And I mean, it really was one of my favorite parks that I really, because I was late to the Disney game because we didn't travel as much to Disney World. Hollywood Studios really held a special place in my heart for quite some time because it was the one park that I remembered the most and visiting with my family. And then we moved here, and in 2013 did the Disney College program. 2015 we came back, and again, rewind to 2013. I had never been to Epcot or Disney's Animal Kingdom. So when I came in 2013, actually a lot of the rides and a lot of the theme parks were my first, so I had all sorts of different first experiences with Jordan and Matt and Rich, and I rode as many rides as I could possibly ride in 2013. I think I marked off quite a few of them at Disney World, and Jordan and Matt especially had really grown up going to Disney World, and their families had come. They'd come quite often. I don't remember if Matt's. I think Matt's family and them were DVC. I know Jordan's was, but I mean Matt and them spent a long time and a lot of years down here in Walt Disney World. So I think it was really good. I got to know them really well, my 2013 roommates, and they really showed me what was special about Disney. I can remember, going to the different theme parks and thinking about the different rides and how much attention to detail went into it. And I just became, I really did. I became obsessed 2012 ish, leading up into 2013 about Disney World. And I remember listening to, and this is part of it that inspired me to kind of start doing content for the parks, was Lou Mongello. If you've listened to WDW radio, um, I try to listen as much as I can to his show, and he really inspires. I think a lot of people that do Disney content, and I really found a home with Walt Disney World. And in 2013, I pretty much made it my home. That was the start of it. I was finishing up college in 2015, so I knew I would be back after my college program. Moved back in 2015. That's where I met Ashley. That's where this whole thing we met behind the castle started. Um, but I mean, I've seen a lot. Like, it's crazy to me, and it's crazy to think that really my true fandom started in 2013. It is now 2014. I'm now seeing a decade of Walt Disney World changes and transformations and upgrades and renovations, refurbishments, and I can honestly say that, I'm much more optimistic. I like to try to see the positive in everything, and change is good. Change is really good in the theme parks. We need it. Things are going to be constantly changing. Things are going to go away. And again, this is a top 10 things that we miss the most at Walt Disney World. That's what the title of the episode is going to be called. And it's kind of, it's kind of sad thinking about these things that are gone, but as much as I miss them, I really enjoy the different things that have replaced them. And we'll talk about things that have replaced it as we kind of, shuffle through this episode. This episode was a lot of notes, so going to be reading some as far as notes that I jotted down or have taken from different places and kind of summarized. And we'll talk a little bit about the history of some of these things and when they opened, when they debuted, when these things went away, and just kind of memories that I have from these 10 things. So I think we should launch into it because I don't want it to be too long, and I think we can really talk a lot about some of these things because of just kind of the nature and the feelings I have towards these things, and just how much I miss them. So first one I want to start with, and I'm going to see if I can do this on the fly because I haven't done this before, is I'm going to switch up the format here on the video version, so that way I can put some slides in next to me. And first up on the 10 things I miss most, number one, and this is not in any order, but I will say I did leave the one that is last on purpose. I left it at that last spot on purpose because it's the one I miss the most. It's the one I wish would come back. It's the one that I think could come back at some point in some kind of form, but I don't know how they'll do it. But we'll talk about that as we get further into the list. But number one is Lights, Motors, Action Extreme Stunt Show. It debuted on May 5th, 2025, 2005 at Disney's Hollywood Studios, back when the park was known as MGM Studios. So if you didn't know that, Disney's Hollywood Studios was not always called that. The show was a duplicate of the Motors Action Stunt Show. I think that's how you say that in French. And it was the spectacular over at Walt Disney Studios Park at Disneyland Paris. So it did not debut here. And that is actually why the theming and the buildings that you saw in Lights, Motors, Action Extreme Stunt Show was Parisian themed, is because that's where it started. It had a massive outdoor stadium, 3,000 seats. And due to the significant size, the studio backlot tour attraction was actually shortened and adjusted to work around the stadium. I was gonna put Backlot on this list, but the only memory I really have of Backlot and what Backlot was, the studio tour, was there was a Home Improvement. I was a big Home Improvement fan when I was growing up. Um, there was a nod to Home Improvement, had, like, the Home Improvement hat and toolbox inside one of the cages as you were walking through the queue line to get into one of the vehicles that took you to the Backlot tour, and I was gonna include that on this list, but then I was like, I don't really have that many memories of the Backlot tour. Like, I don't remember it that much. Um, I remember videos more so than I remember anything that I actually did on that ride or attraction. So I left it off the list, but this one I definitely remembered because Lights Motor Action was around during my college program as well. But during the show, guests would watch stunts, and they were car stunts, jet skis. They had big semis that they came out in, and Lightning McQueen made an appearance, and Herbie Fully Loaded made an appearance at some point. Um, it was weird 'cause it really didn't have a story in it. You know what it reminds me of? It reminded me of, for some reason, the way that the actors are and the stunt people, it reminds me of Indiana Jones-ish, but it, like, obviously with cars and stuff, but it seems it's kinda cheesy, but I liked it because it was. They had a director, and they were sitting back further. There was, like, a water tank that had water that sprayed up because they would use the jet skis, and the director and them would sit kind of just as they were filming, and they would actually show you what they were filming up on the video screens, up in Lights Motors Action. The stadium was huge. It kind of reminded me of, if you've ever been to SeaWorld, the Shamu, the whale stadium. It was big. Like, this stadium was huge. I remember that. I remember this obviously the unique smells that it had of gasoline. I don't know why I remember that much. It had fire, it had explosions. Um, there was a stunt man that was actually set ablaze when when you were doing it. Like, he would, like, kind of roll around on the ground in the fire. And I remember they used to do the stunts, and how they did stunts when they go backwards, they would go back really fast and, like, maneuver really well. And I was like, man, they can back up a car very well. But then they actually show you that there's a car that's built where it's kind of like, it looks like it's facing forward and there's a driver in it, but up underneath the seats, it's kind of built like at a level, and it's kind of like at a slant. And there's actually somebody sitting underneath that person that's controlling it going that way with an actual steering wheel and the accelerator. So the person can actually see out the back of the car, and that's how they could maneuver in through the semi truck. Like, they would back up off of ramps into in, like, the back of a semi truck that was just, the boxy semi truck. So it was really cool. I mean, there was so much about that show that, um, and some people didn't like. I mean, if you didn't like stunts and you didn't like explosions or loud noises, or you were just kind of bored with the car thing, and you've seen it a couple times, then I could see where maybe this was not high on the list, but it was always up there for me. I mean, it really was. There's, like, bullets, there were guns, there were stuntmen, they were fighting, they were racing, they were doing all sorts of things. Like, it was crazy. They had actors, actresses, stuntmen, stunt women. Like, it was definitely one that we always um, made a habit of visiting. And I remember coming the first time that I came, which is funny enough because the first time that we came, I remember at Hollywood Studios, they had the backlot area. And as we were heading back there, I think that's when the High School Musical, there's like a High School Musical show, like a dance show under the hat, because the hat used to have like a stage, like, kind of out by it. And it was kind of in that central hub area where, I mean, seriously, like, looking at pictures of all this stuff at studios is just mind-boggling, because it's the one park that has undergone such transformation, and it looks so different compared to what it used to. Whereas, like Magic Kingdom, it does, but it doesn't. Like, it still has a lot of the skeleton. I feel like when I go to studios, I mean, the only things that I can really think of that were staples there was, like, Indiana Jones, Star Tours over in that area, but everything else was, like, knocked out. Like, Toy Story knocked out a bunch of things, like, in the backlot area. Galaxy's Edge, that's where Lights Motor Action was, and that got all knocked out. And One Man's Dream was kinda like the backlot studio tour area. Um, it I think over by like where Lightning McQueen is now, they use that just as kind of like a sound stage. They didn't really use it as much. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was out there. American Idol Experience was where Frozen. I mean, we could literally do, and we might do that because it's so fascinating the amount of changes that happen at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I mean, the amount of progress that has been made and the amount of changes that have come to Disney's Hollywood Studios is incredible. It did take out some of my favorite things, and there's a lot of things on this list that are Disney's Hollywood Studios because of how much transformation has happened at that park. And it still is one of my favorite parks. I really enjoy Disney's Hollywood Studios. I enjoy them all about equally now. I really do think that each of them have great things that they offer that I really enjoy. So, but yeah, that was first up on my list. It was Lights Motors Action. It did close in 2016 to make way for Disney's Galaxy's Edge. So it was right after my second program that all shut down. That seems wild to me because of like how much time we spent there in 2013. Like, I wish I'd have taken more pictures in 2013, or at least saved the one. I know. I think I had a phone before the one that I have currently because the one I have currently does date all the way back to like 2016. But the one before that, I think when it got fried, I didn't have the photo saved. So anything from like 2013 to 2015 is on Facebook. And some of that stuff obviously I didn't keep or it's gone away or been deleted. So yeah, but Lights Motors Action, what do you guys think? Number 1 on the list. It's one that I really missed, and, nothing like that'll ever come back to Disney's, parks, I don't think, but I don't know, I love stunt shows, and I do love Indiana Jones, but alright, let's move on to number 2. Take a sip sip of water. It is hard to do these by yourself because you get dehydrated because 'cause you're talking the whole time, but all right. So number 2 on the list, we're staying at Disney's Hollywood Studios for this one. And this one's a hot take, I feel. Because I remember the discourse online because well, I guess online then would have been like Facebook, and somewhat Twitter. But the discourse online on this particular thing being taken out of the parks, some very happy about it and some were not. But that is the Mickey Sorcerer hat. In October of 2001, Walt Disney World embarked on a remarkable journey, the 100 Years of Magic celebration to honor the legendary Walt Disney himself, born on December 5th, 1901. It featured metallic structures resembling Mickey's ears and an accompanying Mickey hand, creating an enchanting ensemble. You could find trivia stations, pin stores, stages, all sorts of different things. Like this was a very, I guess, flexed space. Like they did have the pen store and like the pen stand, and they did have some stages by the hat. But like I always felt like things were changing there. They could do multiple things. There was always cast members there. Like it was like entertainment. There were dance shows. That's where the High School Musical thing was. I want to say Power Rangers was Epcot, but I remember photos, and I can't remember if they had eventually made their way to Disney's Hollywood Studios because it was MGM at some point, and the ownership of different movies has changed so drastically. Like Universal owns some of that stuff now. Disney owns AMC now, and that was big in that park. But I mean, seriously, we should do a whole history on Disney's Hollywood Studios just because that park is just ever changing, and I think for the first time in forever, um, that it is going to stay pretty consistent what it is right now because of Star Wars and because of Toy Story. Like those are staple areas now. They've kind of locked themselves into those franchises. I think there's room for expansion, obviously, with those, but it's not like the Hollywood studios of old where they could just replace a bunch of things. A lot of the things that they've now replaced these things with are pretty permanent, I would say. So unless there's some kind of other expansion outward, which I don't really see at Hollywood Studios because it's kind of landlocked, and it's the one park that I really do feel like there's not a lot of room to wiggle around, because of the areas around it. Because driving around that area, I mean, it's all trapped in by roads and major roads to get to Walt Disney World property. Yeah, but the Mickey Sorcerer hat, kind of jumping back to that, it was it was, let me shift to so that I actually have on the slides here. Mickey Sorcerer Hat, it blocked the Chinese theater, and that was the big discussion, was that could, because all the Disney parks have kind of had their icon, right? So Cinderella's Castle for Magic Kingdom, the Epcot Ball for Epcot, and then you had the Tree of Life, right? Well, I guess Spaceship Earth was the more correct term for Epcot, but Epcot Ball. And Hollywood Studios forever used the hat. And I remember when it went away, when they started dismantling it, um, and that was again right around my first program, in between my first and my second program, they were dismantling this thing. Um, and I can remember uh people being very happy that it was going away because they wanted the Chinese theater to be the icon, and it now has become the icon. They used to have the Earful Tower as well for the icon, but now that's gone too. Um, it isn't it's very it's so interesting to me because, again, I think it just kinda marks the idea of the change that's happened there. And so they removed that, and now you can kinda see, like, it they did remove it, and it opened up a huge area, and they do put stages there, during different celebrations and stuff, but, like, that area is pretty empty in front of the Chinese theater. Just picture the big hat sitting there, because that's where it used to be, and it was an obstruction to the Chinese theater. A lot of times people would bypass the Chinese theater because the hat kinda distracted you from getting back behind it. It was really tight back there. It was very interesting. It was a very interesting choice. It again, I mean, I think it was an interesting time because Hollywood Studios was transforming. It didn't know what it wanted. So in that, people really did struggle to, I guess, wrap their heads around the fact that, like, the hat was going to have to be removed. The icon was gonna become the Chinese theater, which at the time was the Great Movie Ride, and now is, now has changed over, to, Mickey's and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So, yeah, like, I remember it being a huge discussion. I remember merchandise changing, like, the hat being, and they dismantled it piece by piece, like, they didn't just bulldoze it, which makes it interesting to me. I always wondered, like, what did they do with the pieces, because they kept them, because typically, if something was going to be demolished, they would probably just demolished it. I don't think there was ever gonna be a use for it. So I'm interested. I wanna know, I kinda wanna know what happened to it, because it was dismantled piece by piece. I don't know if that was because they thought about bringing it back somewhere, or where they were gonna place it, or if they wanted to keep some of it for the archives, or what. I mean, I don't ever know what happened to the pieces of it, but it was very interesting the way they took it apart. Like, it looked like a puzzle piece. Like, it, like, went down in sections. Like, it was above the construction walls, and then kinda the top of it was taken down, and the other part was taken down, and all of a sudden it was just like the golden little, like, loops there. It was very interesting to watch, and it disappeared pretty darn quickly. But now we have the Chinese theater. I like the Chinese theater, but I love the hat more. I thought the hat looked really good. It's pretty funny because this is what it was originally supposed to look like. So this was the original design, and the original design was actually supposed to have two Ferris wheels on the side of it, and it was supposed to be, I think, twice as big as it was. um, which would have been absolutely crazy, because then you really wouldn't have seen the Chinese theater. Um, but the fact that they're going to put attractions next to it, kind of like Mickey's ears, um, that was interesting to me. Like, I felt like that was a very, very interesting, concept. And this kind of goes back to, right, that, like, Disney will release concept art, and then they start to get into the construction. Like, maybe that's not such a good idea, and then they kind of flip script. And but I mean, again, I love the hat. I thought it would have been cool to kind of see what this would have looked like in the park, but I didn't know this was what it was supposed to look like originally. So I thought I would include it and talk a little bit about it, because I thought it was a lot of fun. So, uh, but yeah, that was the sorcerer hat, and now we'll move on to the next one, which is Mickey's Toontown Fair at the Magic Kingdom. The land initially opened as Mickey's Birthday Land on June 18th, 1988, in commemoration of Mickey's 60th birthday. The Walt Disney World Railroad ran a Mickey's Birthday Land Express train with special music and plywood characters along the train route. After the celebration ended, it became Mickey's Starland on May 26, 1990. Mickey's Toyland in late 1995 for Christmas. Mickey's Birthday Land and Starland were set in the city of Duckburg, which was a variety of painted flats and facades depicting various landmarks of the city, in addition to statues of icons with Cornelius Coote and Scrooge McDuck. The land was also hosted Disney Afternoon Stage Show and a petting zoo, which was removed during the land's retheme. And I was sitting there thinking about it, and I wanted to look at photos of it, and I forgot to. But like a petting zoo, right? What it would have been like goats or something, like they have at Rafiki's. The land was closed in early 1996 for an extensive refurbishment, and that's when it became Mickey's Toontown Fair on June 29th of that year. The Barnstormer roller coaster opened more than 3 months later on October 1st, coinciding with the park's 25th anniversary. Its storyline portrayed the land as the holiday home for the characters who reside in Mickey's Toontown in California. And then Mickey's Toontown Fair was closed on February 11th, 2011 to make way for new Fantasyland expansion. Some elements of Mickey's Toontown Fair have been demolished and others have been rethemed to the new Storybook Circus area. The Dumbo, the flying elephant ride, was removed from Fantasyland and rebuilt in Storybook Circus with a new version doubling in capacity because they built the two of them. The Barnstormer, featuring Goofy as the Great Goofini, took the place of the Barnstormer at Goofy's Wiseacre Farm. The first half of the Storybook Circus opened on March 12th in 2012, which included the new themed Great Goofini Storybook Circus train station, which was completely rebuilt, and also one half of the new Dumbo ride. The second phase of Storybook Circus included the second half of Dumbo, the indoor queue area, and the Casey Jr. splash pad. But before, again, it's been a lot of different things, and the reason why I went kind of through the history of it is it seems to be the area that if they're going to do things in Magic Kingdom besides beyond Thunder Mountain, this is one of those areas where they could kind of get away with re-theming it to different things. And I know now it's probably a little bit more permanent because of the Dumbo ride, and it fits with Storybook Circus. So I think their expansion is going to be focused more towards Frontierland and Adventureland should the expansions happen, which we should be getting news of in a couple of weeks probably because they have D23 coming up. But that being said, Mickey Toontown's Fair, what it was, if you've ever been to Disneyland, they actually have they had Mickey's Toontown Fair out there as well. It was Mickey's house, Donald's boat, Goofy, I think, had like a retreat thing out there. Minnie and Mickey had a house. You could meet them all in their different little areas. Mickey and Minnie's house were adorable. I remember going to this way back in the day when we went to Magic Kingdom. I think I was in middle school. The one time that we went before I came back in 2011 to go again for orientation. So, but all I remember is they had their mailboxes. They had like their queue was you went through their house, like you walked through their actual house, and that was awesome because you saw Mickey's plates and coffee mugs and where Pluto slept and like all that kind of stuff. Donald had a boat that I think was kind of like a splash pad ish, and then Donald and them met. But it was like a big celebration of all the Fab Five. I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was one of the best themed areas that I've ever seen. And here's kind of a look at what Mickey's house looked like, Minnie's house looked like. They were really cool. I wish we had photos of those. Maybe my family does or did at one point, but I just remember going through and going, "Oh my gosh, we are we are living with the mouses." So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed Mickey's Toontown Fair. I would love to see something like this come back as well. They used to have like a Pixie Hollow out there as well with Tinkerbell in them. And really they did. They rotated this area pretty darn well. And but now and I always thought it was interesting because they could kind of repurpose that land quite often. It's kind of like the rotating wheel. But now again, like I said, with the two Dumbo rides there now, I don't see them getting rid of that area back there anymore. So expansion can come to Magic Kingdom, but it's not going to happen in that area And it's kind of sad that Mickey's Toontown Fair went away, but I think replacing with Storybook Circus was a pretty good hit because it's a good area to bring the kiddos that want to try roller coasters for the first time, or cool off and get into the splash pad. Dumbo's an iconic ride there. So I think it's definitely worth going back there, but really miss Mickey's Toontown. So moving on, we're going to get into one that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is Camp Mini Mickey. So for those of you that don't know, Avatar took the place of Camp Mini Mickey. I worked in Camp Mini Mickey at the Festival of the Lion King show in 2013. It was demolished and closed January 6th, 2014. I don't think it was demolished then, but like pretty much demolished to everybody else that didn't get to see it anymore. This land, I guess that you call it a land, it's more like an island. It was a camp. Um, it was a lot of trees. It was a lot of trees. It was very shaded. It was very woodsy, very heavy, and like it looked like you were in the mountains, like up in North Carolina, which was really cool. Like it made you not feel as if you were in Disney World. It was actually specifically supposed to be the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York. And that's what the feel was supposed to be. Like you went over this nice little bridge that went over like a little water, like a little, I'm gonna guess like a river or not a river, a stream. That's what I was going with. It went over like a stream, and it had these characters like Mickey and them fishing. So you felt again, you felt like you were camping with Mickey and Minnie, and the gang. And they had character meet and beat greets back there. During my program, you could meet King Louie, Baloo, Pocahontas, John Smith, Miko was out there every once in a while, Goofy and Donald every once in a while. It wasn't often, but you could meet them. Tarzan and Jane sometimes made appearances during the holidays. Um, Turk made some appearances out there as well. Like it was a great spot. They had like three or four little like huts, and they were covered and they were like back in the wooded area. They were great meet and greet areas. They put little Christmas trees back there during Christmas. It was a beautiful place during Christmas. They put like a big Christmas tree back there, and it had like very campy looking animal looking ornaments on the tree. They played music back there, and at night it got really quiet, and especially in December, it got dark quicker. And I can just remember the last two shows working at Festival Lion King, like were some of my favorite because they were pretty much empty. You heard the Christmas music; it felt very Christmassy. If it got cold, it really, I mean, it did. It felt like you were in the mountains, just enjoying the beautiful weather and the sights and the sounds. There's a bunch of squirrels and live animals back there, and just because that was a good place for them to kind of just hang out. Um, it does. It brings back a ton of memories. Festival Lion King was back there. They had a Pocahontas show back there that I believe closed in 2008, and they had a Mother Willow tree that used to talk to you. It became stroller parking for Festival Lion King. So really, people would wander down there and they get really they not mad, but like they'd get confused because it Festival Lion King. It was hard to see Festival Lion King because it was tucked back into the trees, and all we had was like a little shack out front, and there was a sign that said Festival Lion King. But like people, unless they wandered back there, they didn't really see it very well. But it ended up being the most popular, and we were told this when we worked there. It was actually the most attended theater stage show ever in the world because how many times they do it a day, how many people fit into the actual place itself, the building, and I can say it was always a very popular show, and people always came up to us after and were like, "I didn't realize how good that this was," or like I'd have friends that would come see it and go, "We didn't realize how good this was." Or was going to be. It was very, I mean, you can go see it now. It's over in Animal Kingdom still in Africa, but and it's the same show. But it truly is one of the most amazing shows around. But I do miss Camp Mini Mickey. It was very peaceful in Animal Kingdom, and it feels really strange walking around Pandora in Avatar land because like I can still, when I'm back there, I can feel where I am in Camp Mini Mickey, and it's very strange for me. Like it's very odd it's an odd experience because it's like I know where I am, but like I don't. And there's still like different parts of it, like where the merchandise cart is when you first come into it, there used to be a merchandise cart there for Lion King and stuff. So that's weird. That was really weird for me. But they had funnel cake back there as well. I remember that for Camp Mini Mickey because the ducks used to attack the guests to take it from them. Oh gosh, that was wild. But yeah, it closed in 2014 to make way for Pandora: The World of Avatar, which I love. Pandora, it's beautiful. Just never have been a big fan of the movies, but yeah, that's Camp Mini Mickey number 4. And number 5, this one will be a little quicker, but I always forget to flip through the slides. There's me at Festival of Lion King working with all my friends. And then number 5 is the World of Disney, but the old World of Disney. So in downtown Disney, which we did some research. I was trying to get Matt and Andrew to help me out because I was like, when did this close and when did it become? So I think Disney Springs opened in 2018, and that's when 2017, 2018 would have been, I guess, when World of Disney Springs version would have taken over. If you did not ever visit the World of Disney before it changed into the one that is currently the version that is currently, I will say you missed out because World of Disney, back during my 2 programs, it was very character driven. It was very Disney. It looked like Disney had thrown up all over the store. Walt Disney World and like Disney Creation and Animation had thrown up all over the store, not Walt himself, but because it had characters everywhere. And I'll show you what I mean. It's very cool. But it had like a lot of greens, a lot of reds, a lot of browns, a lot of orange. Like it was that same. It was kind of like the theming of downtown Disney, I guess. Those were like some of the main primary colors that you had at downtown Disney. But yeah, they had like the crocodile, I think from Pan, which is the ones right there that are pictured. They had up in the ceiling, they had some of your favorite characters. So the big bad wolf and 3 little pigs, Peter Pan, the evil queen, Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Piglet. It was I remember Cinderella's carriage up there, Pocahontas and her canoe. Uh, it really was. It was a collection of I wouldn't say there was the most popular characters, but it was a collection of characters up in the ceiling. And I mean, you would literally run into people because they were like looking up and there were like lights strung all over. Like you can see it on Pocahontas' boat. There were lights strung up into the rafters. It kind of looked like a Lincoln Logs. Like that's what I would compare it to. The coloring inside of like that dark orange, like almost mahogany look with green mixed in. The World of Disney costumes were just really odd looking. They're like almost looked like plaid-ish kind of thing. Like it had like a tan up here, green like square, like it looked quilted. That's what it looked like. It looked like a quilt, like they were wearing a quilt. But I love the old World of Disney so much. I miss it. I do. The register's really cool. Where you got jewelry was awesome because it was like, well, and that's the other thing. So each of the rooms in that's what's different now. And it's kind of sectioned off, I guess, at Disney Springs. But back then, you had specific rooms. So you had men's apparel, women's apparel, you had toys, you had hats and shirts and stuff like that, headbands, jewelry had its own section, like park exclude. Like it was crazy. It was sectioned off nicely. I actually think it had better flow than the one currently. Another thing that they had a huge TV screen, and sometimes it was playing like music videos from Disney Channel, sometimes it was playing movies, sometimes it was playing bits of movies, cartoons. Like they used the screen for a lot of things. I remember it a lot oftentimes though being like music videos or like um, clips of movies where they were singing. I do remember that. But again, the reason why I say Disney Channel, I can remember back in it probably was 2013, I guess, was Camp Rock a big thing then? Because I remember Camp Rock being played a lot on that TV screen. So Um, yeah, I do. I miss the old, uh, I miss the old world at Disney a lot. So that was number 5 on the list. We're gonna move on to Maelstrom over at Epcot. So if you don't know what Maelstrom is, you really missed out. Maelstrom was an experience. That's what I'll call it. It was an attraction. It was now frozen ever after. Yeah, frozen. Wait, is it frozen ever after? Yeah, is that the ride? Why am I blanking on that again? Yeah, right? It's where the Frozen ride is now in Norway. Um, so I'll read a little bit about it because again, and this takes some explaining for some people because a lot of people don't. They're probably not going to miss Maelstrom, but Maelstrom was so bad it was good. That's how I'll explain it. But let's talk a little bit about it and some of the notes. These words begin your journey into Norway's past and present on Maelstrom, which opened in July 5th, 1988. Although fairly tame by modern standards, this boat ride at Epcot was Epcot Center's first thrill ride. Yeah, that's right. The first thrill ride that was ever built at Epcot Center was Maelstrom, which is crazy to think. It's a 28-foot drop that makes it a thrill ride because, well, it did go backwards. I will, like Frozen, it goes backwards down that real long hallway, and then it spits you out, and you go down the hill. Um, but I mean, there are so many great lines from this attraction. This was a boat cruise. It went through kind of like this Viking. It went through Viking ships, and as you're passing through, you had different like polar. You had like polar bears. You had Vikings. You had trolls. You had like this talking tree thing. It was, and then you ended up in like a in the sea with like boiler. Like it was very odd. And then you ended the ride, and you were actually in like a Norwegian town which I think he's still doing Frozen, but it was so strange. It was, an experience. You started out, and, like, it's this eye of I think it was called the Eye of Maelstrom or Eye of Norway or something like that, and it talked to you, and it was like an eyeball projection. It was odd. It was so odd that I miss it so much because it was such a weird attraction, and people were like, "What was that?" And I remember we would talk to, like, the Norwegian people outside of the attraction, and they were like, "This is not anywhere close to what we even care about in Norway." So, it was very funny. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was actually supposed to be called the North Sea Storm, way back in the day. It was actually supposed to be a lot more rough too. Like, it was supposed to be really intense. Like, at the end, it was supposed to, like, crash up waves on you and, like, get you pretty wet and like, pretty soaked. This was kinda, like, rock the boat, and it was set up to be really kinda scary. Like, you were kinda, like, gonna coil up and, like, go up and down like you do on Dinosaur like, it was supposed to be pretty intense, but then I guess the project changed because there was all sorts of safety hazards because the water woulda got into people, and I mean, it really was going to put a lot of water on people. So they finally changed it. They changed the Sea Venture name, the North Sea Storm. The Sea Venture is what it was going to be called. It finally changed to what's called now, what was then called Maelstrom. These are the three trolls. This was my favorite part of the ride. You'd go up to them and they'd go disappear, and you could go backwards. And it was such an odd experience because, like, they're like, "What are you doing here? Why are you here? Get away from us!" And then they would go, disappear," and you would go backwards, and you were like, "What was that?" Like, what an odd experience that was. Yeah, it was really weird. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it on YouTube. There are still videos of Maelstrom. Um, and let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. But they had a video too that was like 5 minutes that like you could go watch on like Norwegian heritage, and, and it was. I'm telling you, it was a weird. It was very Epcot. Like it felt very Epcot. It tried to teach you so many things in such little detail and such little time. And the animatronics were thought of like state in the art at the time, but then as it got, I guess, it got further and further, they just weren't. And as you can see, like the trolls were pretty terrifying looking. This is what it looked like on the outside, but to this day, I still need a Maelstrom um, t-shirt because they've got a lot of great lines in there. So yeah, that was Maelstrom, an exciting time. Definitely check it out if you have not seen it on YouTube. The next one that is up, we're going back to Disney's Hollywood Studios, and that is the Writer's Stop. It was a coffee shop in Disney's Hollywood Studios. Now, I know some of you are like, yeah, whatever, and we'll probably skip over this part, which I don't blame you, but this was one that was it was fascinating to me. So on the inside, it actually to me it looked very Friends, like Central Perk. That's why I liked it. Actually modeled after Ellen, like the Ellen show. Ellen's by the book sitcom. Like it has that very similar look to that show, and kind of emulating what that show would look like with the cameras above as well, like that you were in a sitcom. But it was like your city bookshop on the corner. You could buy books. Like they had the popular books. They had I remember Hunger Games being on the shelves there, Harry Potter at one point before they bought their before Universal had them. Um, I mean, anything and everything that you could think of as far as popular books, trending books, they were there, just like a regular bookstore. It wasn't big, but they did have that. They had home decor, they had coffee mugs, like not services, but like travel mugs. They had like the posters, they had coffee that you could buy. I'm not sure it was Joffrey's back then. Maybe it was, but anyway, like they really did. They had a ton of that stuff. You could go in and sit, you could read, you could I mean, if you really wanted to take your laptop, I guess you could have in there. I guess Wi-Fi would have been a little bit different back then, but um yeah, this was called the Writer's Stop. They were famous for the carrot cake cookie, um, which is now like the carrot cake whoopie pie at Charlie Cart Cafe, which is the Starbucks at Disney Hollywood Studios. But this is where it originated from. This is exactly where it originated from. This is what it used to look like. It was huge. Um, I got it here for the first time. Like this is the carrot cake cookie I remember. Now it's the whoopie pie. It looks very like refined. It's still big. Like the carrot cake whoopie pie is pretty big, but this thing was massive. Like, I mean, this thing was huge. Like bigger than my head almost. But no, it wasn't that big. But it was good size. It was very good. I remember that. I remember getting it. They had pastries and stuff there as well. You could go up to like the confection area and get some of that stuff. They had coffee. They used to have like creamer and stuff and sugar on, like, the counter, I remember that. They had different nods to, like, the backlot tour because the backlot was back there. Um, they had different movies that would play. They had a TV screen in there. It was just so cozy. It really did. It felt like a Central Park or, like, a New York City style on the corner bookshop, the coffee shop that you could just kinda hang out in. I loved the name of it, the nod to, Writer Stop, and when it closed, it is now currently where Baseline sits. So if you've ever been in Baseline, which is over at Disney Hollywood Studios, which is that like brewery type place where you can get some beers and beer pretzel, a cheese pretzel, whatever they call it, that big pretzel thing, the charcuterie board. They get seltzers and things like that. They sell a lot of alcohol there. Um, Great little spot to hang out at Disney's Hollywood Studios. It's kind of going back into Galaxy's Edge, and that's where like the Streets of America and them and Lights, Motors, Action and them were back in that area. So that kind of starts right there where Muppets and them are. So yeah, Writer's Stop. I miss you. You were a lot of fun. Um, Definitely one of the places I always tried to stop in when I was at Hollywood Studios when I was there. So very sad that it's gone. Next up, great movie ride. We're staying at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And I'm trying to think, are we staying at? Oh no, we go back to Epcot one more time, and then we come back to Disney's Hollywood Studios. So that might be giving away what I missed the most. Um, Great movie ride. Directly inspired the creation of Disney's Hollywood Studios. In a Walt Disney Imagineering book, it was revealed that the Great Movie Ride was originally planned as the main attraction in a show business themed pavilion at Epcot. So this was actually supposed to be there. And it was going to be called Great Moments at the Movies. However, the newly assigned Disney CEO Michael Eisner and Marty Sklar, the Walt Disney Imagineering president, decided the idea was strong enough to lead an entire new theme park, and that's why we get 1989, right? Yeah, 1989 was when we got Disney's Hollywood Studios. On May 1st, 1989, we get Disney's Hollywood Studios, and the Great Movie Ride was pretty much a nod to every movie that they thought of that when they were creating this theme park. Like a lot of inspired stuff went into this theme park because of those movies that we have grown to love. As the guests reached the end of the queue, they entered a 1930s era Hollywood soundstage where they become loaded by cast members into two, where they were loaded by cast members into one or two pairs of open theater style seating ride vehicles. So it was kind of like you're in a car. The ride vehicles utilize a traveling theater style automated guided vehicle ride system similar to the former Universe of Energy attraction over at Epcot. However, here the ride vehicles were much smaller, are grouped together in pairs of two, and feature an open cab in the first row of the front of the vehicle for a live tour guide to stand, provide narration, and operate the ride vehicle. So yeah, you had a kinda like a skipper, but they weren't telling the jokes, but they were acting. And they were taking you through and they were giving you this guided tour through, like, different sound stages and movie sets. They were talking about the different movies. They were talking about all the great movies and classic movies that were in this ride, and we'll get into which ones those were. But they would stand at the front, and then at, like, the middle area, you got to a place where, like, and then the Public Enemy, I believe it was, um where it would stop and Muggsy, they were both Muggsy, boy or girl Muggsy, would stop and like take over the ride vehicle because your tour guide would get out and they would jump in and take off with it. And you're like riding around with this gangster. And he's like, I can remember they were like shooting, they had like play guns, and they're like shooting or like yeah, they're like shooting at rival like mobsters, and they were like going through and they I think you would go into Alien with them and they're like, "What the heck is this?" Because you're taking them like kind of out of their movie into other movie scenes. It was so much fun. I remember them being very entertaining. And then eventually I think it's in the yeah, it was like in the Pharaoh scene. Later on that they would actually the person there's like a backstage area where your tour guide would pop back up out of one of the coffins and come out and then take over the ride because he would get out and like he's like I gotta look around, the gangster does or she, and they would walk around, they would get out of your vehicle, and then the tour guide would take back over and continue the ride. It was so cool. But yeah, let's talk about some of the movies that were in the great movie ride. So you had Footlight Parade, you had Singing in the Rain, Mary Poppins, The Public Enemy, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, The Searchers, Alien, Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's the one where they came out of the like the coffin area. Tarzan and his mate, Casablanca, one of my favorite scenes of them all. Fantasia, which I actually don't remember that. Like, I don't remember Fantasia being in it. I'll have to go back and watch the ride again because for the life of me, I can remember everything else, but I cannot remember where Fantasia popped up in the Great Movie Ride. And then Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz was like the most breathtaking, I think, because you're in Oz. Like you are with the Munchkins, you're walking down the yellow brick road, you're riding down the yellow brick road. They're singing, you're singing. You actually there was a point where Wicked Witch of the West, I think, is on the building, and then all of a sudden she kind of goes up in smoke, and then you see her the slippers down below the house, and they kind of disappear too. It was a really cool ride. I really, I really enjoyed it. The alien part was scary. It made a lot of noise. I remember that part. Singing in the Rain uh, is I will admit I had never seen Singing in the Rain. I've never seen it, but that being said, it is one of the coolest parts of that ride. Um, and I mean, honestly, like it made me want to go and watch it. Probably should go watch it. But Gene Kelly sitting on or standing on the light pole, and it looks like it's raining on him, and he's singing, "I'm singing in the rain." No, I won't sing for you all, but yeah, that was awesome. Mary Poppins, yeah, they had Mary Poppins. That was very cool. It was the on the roof when they were on the roof singing um, with Dick Van Dyke, and yeah, like thinking about all this stuff. Like when you're going through Public Enemy and you're going through like that rough neighborhood as the gangster, and you're winding around and there's honking horns. You feel like you're in the city with the gangsters, and that was awesome as well. Clint Eastwood, like Casablanca had the plane in there and it moved. Like it was so cool. I miss it so much. The tour guides were always what made it that much better. So if you are out there listening and you know one of the tour guides or you are one of them, kudos to you all. You always made that a lot of fun. And this is just kind of some pictures. This is, I mean, look how good those animatronics are for Wizard of Oz. You got Munchkin Land, which was awesome. Gene Kelly singing in the rain. But yeah, I miss it. I miss it a lot. All right. Next up, if you're on the video version, you know what it is. But it is electric umbrella. Now, I know a lot of people go, "What? Why do you miss electric umbrellas? This is like generic park food." It was not. It was not. They had like so they had flatbreads towards the end of its life. They had hamburgers, bacon cheeseburgers. They had big bacon cheeseburgers. That's why I liked it. Um, Flatbreads. They had meatball subs at one point. My favorite thing they ever had was the mac and cheese burger. Used to get that thing all the time when we could go. Matt, Jordan, and I ate there so many times. I probably lost count. It had refillable, like the refillable fountain drinks. So that was always why I liked going there too, because I like to be able to fill up my own drink because I have to have a drink every time I eat something. So that was great. I love the coloring. It looked like a Starcourt Mall kind of stuff. Like it looked like 80s, 90s mall food courts. It had great music, very like techno or electric like it did. It felt so good, synthetic music, like that kind of stuff that just a lot of noises, a lot of buzzing, a lot of I don't know, it was about upbeat songs. I really enjoyed it. They had great costumes as well. I love their costumes. Um, I love the colors. I love the neon signs. There was always a lot of neon in there. They had the best outdoor seating area. I know it was hot, but like when it was a nice day out, it was great because you could sit out there and watch people walk through Epcot, like around where the pin trading stand used to be, out behind the ball, like kind of where that fountain was, and yeah, I really did enjoy Electric Umbrella a ton. Miss it. It was my favorite quick service restaurant there. And I know there's probably better options, but I don't know. It just made me feel really good when I was there. This upstairs seating area was a lot of fun when it was open. Sometimes it was closed, but it was a good way to get away from people. If you really wanted a break, and it had good views of like the walkway in between that and out towards like Mission Space. So I don't know. I did. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a good quick service restaurant. And last, but certainly not least, and we'll gush about this one and maybe cry a little bit. The Osborne family spectacle of dancing lights at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which debuted in 1995 during the holiday season. So, Streets of America, no longer around. Was back there where Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is, and like Lights Motored Action was like out that way as well because it was like at the end of the road that you used to get back from the spectacle of dancing lights. This was by far, in a way, the best night show they ever did. There's not even anything close to this. Like, there's nothing close to this in the holiday seasons, in the 4th of July, in New Year's, at any other theme parks in the world. This thing was the most impressive dancing light spectacle I'd ever seen. It was so good. It got so crowded, but it was okay because you were just there to take it all in. It played music, Trans-Siberian Orchestra music, where like they danced to it. They danced to your favorite holiday tunes. They danced to Disney tunes. Like this, and you need to watch it. If you've never seen it, go watch it on YouTube. Like you will not regret it, especially during the holiday season. Just turn it on, watch it, um, soak it in, get some surround sound, get some lights going, get them dancing, right? Um, I think about this all the time. Like I think about Osborne, Dancing Lights, and it really is. It's so sad that it's gone. Like it was a party within the party. Like there was so you I forget they came on relatively early, like right when it hit dusk, they came on and the music started to play and they would let you back into that area if you had theme park admission, obviously. You were able to go back there. I think sometimes it would reach capacity, but not often. like closer to Christmas Day, because the parks would reach capacity around those times. But you would go back there and right away you're hit in the face with, like, they had Snope at some point. Um they had beverages for sale. They had hot chocolate. They had Christmas themed snacks. They had, I mean, people were oftentimes singing in there. I'm just trying to remember everything that they had. Oh, they had like the necklaces that you could buy. They had merchandise. I remember one of the last ones, Osborne, like they had their own specific merch. One was with Goofy, and it was like a long sleeve green shirt. I think it was back in 2013, and he had like Christmas lights wrapped around him, and it was a cool shirt. And I wish I'd gotten it. Um, but and this, I want to say, if I remember correctly, this went away without much of a warning because of Galaxy's Edge. So people were shocked and people were mad, and there are still to this day very angry that Osborne's spectacle of dancing lights is no longer. Which I get, I understand it. But here's a fun backstory. I didn't know what the backstory was. To be fair, I thought that Osborne was like Ozzy Osbourne. I'm not gonna lie to you. Um, but I read about this and I thought it'd be interesting to talk about on the podcast a little bit. So, initially constructed by an Arkansas businessman as a gift for his 6-year-old daughter, the display became one of the most popular attractions during the park's holiday season. Jennings Osborne, along with his wife Mitzi, founded the Arkansas Research Medical Testing Center in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1968. The business success allowed him and his wife to eventually purchase a large estate in the middle of the town in 1976. In 1980, the Osborns had a daughter, Allison Breanne Osborne, nicknamed Breezy. In 1986, Breezy asked her father if they could decorate their home in Christmas lights. Osborne compiled stringing 1,000 lights around their home each year after that. It just got bigger and bigger, said Osborne. Eventually, Osborne purchased the two properties adjacent to his own and expanded the display into them. By 1993, the display had over 3 million lights. Some of the most prominent features included an illuminated globe with Little Rock and Bethlehem marked mounted in the backyard, two rotating carousels of lights placed on each end of the estate's circular driveway, a 70-foot tall Christmas tree of lights with 80,000 lights in three colored layers mounted on top atop the kitchen, the home's kitchen, and a canopy of 30,000 red lights over a section of the driveway. The lights were extremely popular in both Arkansas and around the world as news crews started to film and visit the display. Since their house was located on one of the busiest streets in Little Rock, it eventually caused severe traffic issues and many complaints. The display grew bigger every year, and by 1993, it was lit for 35 days during the Christmas season from sunset to about midnight every day. Six neighbors filed a lawsuit saying traffic congestion made trips to the corner store take about 2 hours, and they feared for emergency vehicles going up and down the street. Osborne responded by adding 3 million more lights. The county court ordered an injunction against the display, limiting it to 15 days and directing that it be lit only from 7 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Osborne appealed first to the Arkansas Supreme Court and lost, then in 1994 to the United States Supreme Court, and he also refused to halt the order. In 1995, the state Supreme Court shut down the display altogether. The Osborns continued to have a light display, but on a much smaller scale, well into the 2000s. And then after the September 11th attacks, they erected an enormous lit American flag with the words "God bless America" and "God bless George W. Bush" across the bottom of the flag. The story of the light display's court case brought national attention, including offers from several cities to host the display. Walt Disney World project director John Phelan contacted Osborne's attorney in the moving light display to the Orlando resort and eventually discussed the potential move. Osborne was intrigued by the offer, but initially understood that Disney wanted to put the display on another residential street in Orlando. What Phelan actually offered was to install the display on Residential Street, a backlot section of Disney's Hollywood Studios theme park. Being a fan of the resort himself and realizing there was a display would go, Osborne accepted Disney's offer in 1995. The display was set up on the residential street as the Osborne family spectacle of lights, becoming an immediate success. Residential Street was visited during or using the studio backlot tours tram vehicles when the light display was in place. However, the tram tours would stop before sunset, allowing guests to walk among the displays. Initially, the display was purely the original lights from the Osborne estate, but in subsequent years, from the display was augmented in a current size of other over 5 million lights. The display Disney caretakers have also added a number of hidden Mickeys into the lights. The 2007 edition of the display featured over 40 of the icons. In the 2011 display, had a major overhaul. All the lights were swapped out for LED, including all the rope light. So uh, that's where you really get kind of like what this picture is showing here. And you can actually see some of the things like the carousel and the trees and some of the red lights that were put up that are nods to the original Osborne show in Arkansas. Um, but they did such a great job with this show. I miss it so much. It was easily the best thing to do at the Christmas. I mean, the parking lot would get so fat or filled quickly. Like the whole lot would be filled for people to come to this show. I mean, that's how crazy it was. The whole Hollywood Studios lot would be backed up because of the spectacle of lights. On September 11th, 2015, Disney announced that the 2015 holiday season would be the final season. So it was okay. So it was out in advance. It just didn't feel like that. It felt so sudden. Well, I guess it was within the year, but they're like, this year it's done. Usually with Disney, like, okay, you got a couple years to enjoy it. On January 3rd, 2016, it was announced the final season would be extended by 3 more nights, with the final performance were scheduled for January 6th, 2016. Final songs the lights danced to were Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas and Mickey Mouse Club Alma Mater. That gave me chills. I don't know why that gave me chills, but it did. Um, it again, go to YouTube, do yourself a favor, watch it. It is so good. Um, and now I kind of want to go and say, Disney had something back, right? Like, I know they can't do something like this again, but something similar, like a light show, a Christmas light show. It was so much fun. It got you in the Christmas spirit. Like they would put like Christmas decorations in the houses, like the facades and the windows. Like it felt like a Christmas village. I mean, you can see this. It was every building was decked out in Christmas lights, and they all danced in sync with whatever song was playing. It truly was an incredible experience. I miss it a ton. So again, go watch it. Maybe during Christmas or during the holiday season, watch it again because it gives you all the feels. It really does. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode, this podcast episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. That was 10 things that I missed most in Walt Disney World. There are so many things that I missed that obviously have come and gone at Walt Disney World, and I can name them all. But this podcast would be about 24 hours. So I'm not interested in doing that. But if you have anything that I missed that you miss, leave that in the comments below. What are some things that you hope Disney maybe brings back at some point in some kind of variation, like I was talking about? I think they could do something similar to this, but in different locations, with the Christmas lights dancing like this. But yeah, tell me what your thoughts are. Are there things on my list that you're like, yeah, I'd rather that stay gone, or I'm glad that left? So yeah, just leave that in the comments below. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're on the YouTube version, again, you can go to YouTube and find vlogs. I usually do 2 to 3 a week, usually 2 right now, that I do from the theme parks. Coming up, Country Bear Jamboree and a couple other things from Magic Kingdom. We're going to be doing some Halloween Horror Night stuff over at Universal coming up in the coming weeks because there's a lot of announcements that have happened there. And we're just about a month away from Hollywood or Halloween Horror Nights. The Christmas season and Halloween is coming to Disney very quickly. I think August 9th is the first Halloween party, which is insane. So Mickey is going to be decking out the Magic Kingdom very soon, and we're going to be over there and checking that kind of stuff out and some of the treats that they have for the Halloween season. So again, thanks for watching this video. We hope to see you guys in the next video, and we hope to see you guys at the parks.